Banjo-Kazooie and its sequel, Banjo-Tooie, are classics for a lot of reasons. The fun and charming art style, the memorable music and characters, the incredibly fun gameplay, and much, much more. You could name any one thing about them and make an argument for how and why it contributed to the success and lasting legacy the series has left behind. I talk about a lot of these things in my retrospective series on them, but today I want to focus on one of my favorite things about these games, something that has kept me coming back to them for years: their worlds. Banjo-Kazooie and Banjo-Tooie are both chock full of incredible worlds to play through and explore, along with a few not-so-great ones. Having played through both games recently, I want to have some fun and rank these worlds while they're still fresh in my mind. I'm going to be taking into account various factors, including themes, mechanics, and design, but ultimately I'm just ranking them according to my own preference. Every single level in these games has lots to love about them. My least favorites may be your favorites, and you may absolutely hate the ones I love. I know it's a cop-out, but I think all Banjo worlds are good, even the bad ones. Let me know what your most loved and hated levels are in the comments, and be sure to like and subscribe while you're here. If you're enjoying my videos and you want to support the channel, you can also become a channel member. But let's go ahead and get into this ranking, starting with my personal least favorite level. Pterodactyl Land comes right in the middle of Banjo-Tooie, a prehistoric land of dinosaurs, cavemen, and quite honestly terrible level design. If you watched my Banjo-Tooie video, then you know I'm a huge fan of this game, and I talked a lot about how great its worlds are. Many of them will be at the top of this list. Well, Pterodactyl Land is a T-Rex sized exception to that. The theme is fine, but I still think it's the weakest Tooie has to offer. It has one or two interesting jiggy challenges, but the boss is pretty weak, and even the music isn't quite up to the standards set by other levels. But none of that is what puts Pterodactyl Land at the bottom of this list. This is where the flaws in Banjo-Tooie's game systems come together to create some truly unfortunate level design. There are two dinosaur transformations, and changing between them requires the use of Mumbo, so the amount of running back and forth between Mumbo and Humbawamba to change to the required dinosaur quickly becomes an overwhelming slog. A few people in the comments used this point to try and undermine what I said about the backtracking not being so bad, but I think there's an obvious difference between this and the rest of the game. I can't even enjoy the novelty of running around as a massive T-Rex because of how unnecessarily inconvenient it is. This is bad enough, but the rest of the level is just as cumbersome. Pterodactyl Land single-handedly causes the train mechanic to overstay its welcome, and multiple jiggies require several steps to complete, like long steps. On top of all this, the level is just kind of annoying to traverse, which I wouldn't mind so much on its own, but it's just the cherry on top. It does have some cool exploration, and there are the makings of a great level here. Several people in the comments of my Tooie video named this level as their favorite, which I think is awesome. I love hearing that other people found something to love in it, but I just couldn't quite get there myself. I could go on complaining about Pterodactyl Land, but we have 16 other worlds to cover, so let's just leave it at saying Pterodactyl Land goes out of its way to be annoying, a trait it shares with the next level on this list. Rusty Bucket Bay is the second to last level in Banjo-Kazooie, and it has a well-deserved reputation for being awful. It's a polluted and run-down harbor with a scummy freighter anchored in it. I actually like this theme a lot, but Clanker's Cavern has a similar style and pulls it off a bit better. Similarly to Pterodactyl Land and many of the lower levels on this list, it suffers from the flaws in the game design itself. In Banjo-Kazooie's case, that would be the music notes, which require you to collect them all in one go if you want to get them all. This is annoying even on Banjo-Kazooie's good levels, but it's at its worst in Rusty Bucket Bay. Traversal is ridiculously precarious, and you'll probably be pulling yourself out of the water over and over again, assuming you don't drown or get eaten by the shark. The engine room is notoriously deadly, and while I actually enjoy the platforming here, it makes collecting notes that much more difficult. And on top of this, some of the notes are hidden away quite well, and every second you spend trying to find them raises the chance that you'll die and have to start over. Overall, Rusty Bucket Bay just isn't fun, and if you ask me, it's Banjo-Kazooie at its worst. Alright, time to make some enemies. Click Clock Wood is one of Banjo-Kazooie's most popular levels, and one of my least favorites. The forest theme is extremely basic and actually kind of bland, but it makes up for this by splitting the world into 4 zones representing the 4 seasons. As I stated in my Banjo-Kazooie video, Click Clock Wood does a lot of cool and creative stuff, but it's overshadowed by clunky design and unnecessarily tedious challenges. Collecting all the notes is horrible, and it's easy to miss notes and be forced to run back and forth between the seasons looking for them. The tree would be a really nice centerpiece, but it's in quadruplicate, and the different seasons don't do enough to make scaling it over and over interesting or rewarding. It has some really creative and dynamic jiggy challenges, but some of them require multiple steps, and this on top of everything else can make the world feel extremely tedious. The bee transformation is limited to just the spring section of the level, making it completely insignificant. I know I'm in the minority on this one, but Click Clock Wood just doesn't work for me. I keep going back to it, expecting to have my mind changed, but each time I'm just reminded why I hated it as a kid. A lot of people like it for a lot of good reasons, I'm just not one of them. Cloud Cuckoo Land is Banjo-Tooie's final level, and although its absurd and wacky theme is great and it has some interesting moments, it just isn't fun to play. Getting where you want to go is always a confusing and clumsy trial, which fits the theme perfectly, but it's still annoying. Everything is just so segmented and inconveniently placed, and of course one mistake means you're falling to your death, though that isn't as big of a deal in Banjo-Tooie. The bee from Click Clock Wood returns, and while it has a few upgrades and it can be fun to buzz around the islands in the sky, it still isn't implemented that well. I like how the central cavern serves as a nexus to get from place to place, but I somehow always feel lost in this world no matter how long I play it. Again, that adds to the disorienting absurdity of the world, but that doesn't make it fun to play. Of course, Cloud Cuckoo Land's greatest crime is that it's home to the most universally reviled and infamous Jiggy challenge of all time. Can you guess what I'm talking about? That's right, it's Canary Mary. This is a race that requires you to tap a button as fast as you can. I'm always instantly salty about button tapping because my brother always beat me on these stupid tapping minigames in Mario Party. He was like a demon, it was never even close. Canary Mary pops up first in Glitter Gulch Mine, but in Cloud Cuckoo Land, it's 10,000 times worse. It lasts an obscenely long time, and you have to tap really fast, like unreasonably so. I almost couldn't do it, I was almost physically incapable of completing this challenge. I had to use a pin and pause it to take breaks. And to add insult to injury, they have the absolute gall to make you do it a second time for a Cheeto scroll. It's horrible, I never want to do it again. But realistically, one Jiggy challenge doesn't ruin the whole level, and it does some things well. I really like the boss, Minji Jongo. He provides a tough challenge and a robotic, evil Mumbo makes for a surprising twist. It interacts with Hailfire Peaks and Pterodactyland in some fun ways, and I really like some of the sub-areas and the challenges they provide. Overall, I think Cloud Cuckoo Land does just enough to claim a spot above the others I've listed. Bubblegloop Swamp comes next, and while it doesn't have as many strident flaws as the previous levels, it's still pretty weak in my book. It consists mostly of deadly swamp water and requires a lot of precarious platforming, similarly to Rusty Bucket Bay. Its main issue is that it's just kind of unremarkable, and I don't personally enjoy the theme or music that much. The crocodile transformation is cool, but every time you want to transform you have to run through this big maze in the swamp boots, which can be pretty frustrating. I think the Jiggy challenges overall are relatively weak, a mix of basic platforming and frustrating minigames. It's just kind of forgettable, and it doesn't hold up to many of Banjo-Kazooie's levels. Clanker's Cavern is a level I actually like quite a bit, but I can't deny that it has some pretty big flaws. Most of the level is submerged, and while I don't actually mind underwater gameplay, it can be really hard to see in some sections, making it even harder to navigate. There are very few locations to get out of the water, so if you keep falling in, it could get old pretty quick. That being said, I do like the theme and music quite a bit, and it boasts a diverse set of Jiggy challenges. Clanker gives the level a nice little centerpiece, and I like the dynamic way he's implemented. I've heard a lot of people say that this is their least favorite level in the game, and while I completely understand that, to me it's a mix of good and bad. 11th is Mumbo's Mountain, not because it does anything particularly bad, but because it doesn't do anything particularly good. And that's to be expected. It was the first level of Banjo-Kazooie, and it served as an introduction to the game's formula and mechanics. It's very small and extremely easy, it only took me 15 or 20 minutes to complete. But it's cute and colorful and charming, and I really like the music. It manages to be really memorable in spite of how open and shut it is, and it's hard not to have a lot of nostalgia for it. The tribal theme works and fits Mumbo perfectly, the termite is cute, and it's still fun to explore even with as small as it is. It was a strong start for Kazooie, but it's nowhere near the heights later levels would achieve. Mad Monster Mansion is the first to make my top 10, and I like it a lot. Its theme is pretty basic, just a spooky haunted mansion, but I actually don't mind that. Most of Kazooie's themes are fairly straightforward, and while I do highly prefer the deeper and more realized themes of Tooie, this approach fits Kazooie well. I like how Mad Monster Mansion ties into Gruntilda, almost like this is her house. It's kinda tough, but not in a frustrating, overbearing way. It's fun to explore and find little hidden areas, and it isn't too much of a pain to complete. The Halloween theme might be basic, but it's executed well and makes good use of the concept. The pumpkin transformation is one of my favorites. It's as rudimentary as they come, but bouncing around as a funny little pumpkin is just too much fun. I'm always happy to return to this level, even if it isn't one of my favorites. Number 9 is Grunty Industries, a grimy, smog-spewing factory full of underpaid workers and toxic waste. I like this level a lot, but many people in the comments of my Tooie vid were quick to point this one out as their least favorite. And honestly, I completely understand that. There are 5 different floors to explore here, not including the exterior and roof section of the factory, and it can be kind of tricky to navigate between them with the right character. I can totally see how this would turn some people off, and probably for a lot of the same reasons I don't like Pterodactyland. But for whatever reason, Grunty Industries works for me. Navigating the level was a fun and challenging puzzle on its own, and I found it really rewarding to open new areas and access more and more of the building. Even the parts that should be awful, like the timed challenges where you have to swap between Banjo, Mumbo, and Washing Machine, I found myself enjoying them. Maybe this is how Pterodactyland fans feel. The Washing Machine itself is one of my favorite transformations, if only for the ability to launch underwear at foes. Grunty Industries is one of those where I completely understand the complaints and by all rights should be ranked lower, but I just like it. The theme is incredible and I love the music, and Weldar has what I think is the best gameplay out of all the bosses. It's a top 10 level for me, and I stand by it. Freezeezy Peak is next, Banjo-Kazooie's Christmas level. Like Mad Monster Mansion, the theme is fairly one note, but that can't take away from Freezeezy Peak's charm. I love this level, and the song is on my Christmas playlist every year. The snowman in the middle serves as a fantastic centerpiece, and provides some really nice verticality to the world, making it feel a lot bigger than it really is. It has a mix of really good and kinda bad jiggy challenges, but overall the level is a ton of fun to play through and complete. Like all transformations, the walrus is little more than an extra step, but hey, it's cute. I kinda like these big snowman guys that throw snowballs at you, and they can get pretty annoying if you don't pay attention to them. Aside from the boggy race and the lackluster transformation, Freezeezy Peak is just pure charming fun. It isn't the very best Banjo-Kazooie has to offer, but it's pretty darn close. Glitter Gulch Mine comes in at number 7, and it has some of the strongest theming in the series, in my opinion. I love the music and characters here, and the atmosphere is really nice and homey. Despite taking place entirely underground, this level feels really spacious and open, and although the mini tunnels can be somewhat taxing to navigate, I always enjoy exploring the mines. The dynamite trigger is admittedly completely ancillary, but it's still a creative and unique transformation, and I wish there was more to do with it. Old King Cole is not one of my favorite bosses, but he does have a pretty strong personality, like all the characters in Tooie. In terms of gameplay and challenges, Glitter Gulch Mine is relatively weak, but the overall vibe more than makes up for that, at least for me. It's a somewhat unremarkable world propped up by Banjo-Tooie's great atmosphere and engaging approach to exploration, and it will always be one of my favorites. Treasure Trove Cove is only Banjo-Kazooie's second level, but it ends up being my second favorite level in the entire game. It's similar to Mumbo's Mountain in that it's trivially easy, but that doesn't make it any less fun. The beachy pirate theme is, as with all Banjo-Kazooie levels, simple but effective, and the music is utterly iconic. It's just laid out so perfectly. You can run around in a circle and explore the beach, but there's this really cool mountain in the middle with a lighthouse that you can sail to look out over everything. I like how the music fades away as you go higher, replaced by the sound of wind and waves and seagulls. It's one of the few levels in the game that has something approaching a boss fight, easy as it is, and it has several nice jiggy challenges that fit the theme. I just can't get enough of this level, and I wish it was a bit more substantial. But if the only criticism I can come up with is that there isn't enough of it, that just speaks to the high quality of the world. Before we get into the top 5, I want to do a quick honorable mention round. This will include areas that aren't exactly full worlds, but still deserve some recognition. This section isn't ranked, I'm just going to very quickly talk about the things I appreciate in these areas. First up is Spiral Mountain, the home of Banjo, Kazooie, and ostensibly Gruntilda herself. This is an endlessly charming little paradise, and it's honestly one of Banjo-Kazooie's nicest looking areas. It's fun to explore, and I like that you can hang out in Banjo's house and find collectibles in little nooks and crannies. The music fades away as you cross the bridge to Gruntilda's lair, replaced by a spooky, mischievous melody to establish Grunty's imposing presence. But one of my favorite things about Spiral Mountain is how different it is in Banjo-Tooie. Grunty's actions have wrecked the place completely, leaving it in disarray. The haunting, morose music is a sharp contrast to the happy-go-lucky tune in Kazooie, establishing the darker tone Banjo-Tooie will employ. It's very smart game design, having you start somewhere both familiar and foreign, and it makes Spiral Mountain a very memorable location. Grunty's lair is, in a word, iconic. The music is instantly recognizable and gives the whole game a strong personality. It's compact and segmented, but it's laid out in a creative, non-linear way that can be disorienting in the best way possible. Grunty is so fun and wacky in this game, and though I personally enjoy her caustic, vitriolic attitude in Tooie, I can't deny that Banjo-Kazooie establishes her personality perfectly, and that is reflected in Grunty's lair. Jinjo Village is the home of the Jinjos and their king, and it's one of my favorite places to hang out in either game. The music is happy and inviting, the Jinjo houses are cute and colorful, and Bottle's house is completely adorable. It reminds me of a Hobbit house. There's not much to do in Jinjo Village, but there doesn't have to be. Isle o' Hags takes the place of Grunty's lair in Banjo-Tooie, and it does a fairly good job of it. It isn't as memorable, but there's plenty to explore, and the different locations are quite diverse. It feels a bit more real than Grunty's lair, making the different worlds fit more naturally into the game, and there are several characters that make their home here, including Jiggy Wiggy and Honeybee. It isn't as fun and wacky as Grunty's lair, but honestly, what is? Finally, there's Cauldron Keep, Banjo-Tooie's finale. There isn't much to say about this place. It works really well as a final act, but there's not much here except a couple of boss fights and a trivia quiz. It's impressive and imposing, but I have to say it doesn't hold much of a candle to Grunty's lair. But that wraps up our honorable mention section, so let's get back to the ranking. Kicking off my top 5 is what I consider to be Banjo-Kazooie's best world, Gobi's Valley. It's an Egyptian-themed desert world, complete with a sphinx and several pyramids. It perfectly executes Banjo-Kazooie's formula, with tight playground-style platforming and intense, fast-paced Jiggy challenges. It's quite small and densely packed, making it a blast to traverse and complete. Each of the rooms provide a compact, unique, and fun challenge, and this level is uniquely free from the pressure of collecting all the notes, since the world is so small and easy to navigate. There's not much more to say, it's just an excellent level all around, with pretty much no flaws worth speaking of. It's the perfect balance of challenge and fun, and a highlight of every Banjo-Kazooie playthrough. My Ahem Temple is Banjo-Tooie's first level, and it makes a really strong first impression. The theme is excellent and fully realized, with incredible music and a lot of great opportunities for exploration. The Stony is a basic and rudimentary transformation, but I do enjoy the kickball tournament, and being able to talk to other Stonies is a fun novelty. It links up with later levels in some interesting ways, and I really enjoy exploring Targetzen's temple, though I know a lot of people don't like the first-person Breagle Blaster mode. The atmosphere is immersive and appealing, and despite being fairly small and closed off, it feels quite expansive and it's always fun to traverse. My Ahem Temple perfectly establishes the high standard Tooie sets for its levels, and I always enjoy returning to it. Number 3 is Hailfire Peaks, a polarized land of hot and cold. It takes two ideas that would be fairly basic on their own, and combines them to create a really unique and engaging level. This level is at its best when you have to navigate between the two sides of the mountain, and I wish it did a little more of that. There's a ton of areas to explore here, from a volcano to an ice cavern to a kickball arena. It's one of the hardest areas in the game, and overcoming the challenges are always satisfying. The snowball is one of the best transformations, and it interacts with the level itself in really dynamic ways. Chili Billy and Chili Willy are easy and redundant, but they have a lot of personality and spectacle, and they top off the level nicely. Hailfire Peaks just does so much right, and I think this would have made a better final level than Cloud Cuckoo Land. Witchy World is an all-time classic, and in my opinion, the second best Banjo world ever. The theme is utterly perfect, and it captures the atmosphere of a creepy, trashy amusement park masterfully. The music is haunted and whimsical, and the several themed sub-areas make it consistently fun to explore. The music is actually ingenious, giving the world so much character and atmosphere. It also boasts some of the most diverse gameplay in Banjo-Tooie, with several mini-games and carnival attractions to complete. Mr. Patch is my favorite boss fight by far, if just for his incredible theme song. His scale is really impressive, and the way he shrinks and gets faster as you damage him makes the fight really dynamic. The armored car transformation is used in some frankly annoying ways, but it's so much fun to crash through enemies that I have to give it a pass. Witchy World is quite simply Banjo at its very best, and it truly deserves a place at the top. But my number one, most favoritist level of all time is Jolly Roger Lagoon. This is a level that is just so incredibly fun to play, on top of an amazing theme, excellent atmosphere and music, and deep and engaging exploration. I love the concept for this world. You enter into this adorable little pirate town. There are shops that you can buy collectibles from, a hidden beach, and a charming pirate tavern. But then you can dive down into the water to discover a vast underwater world ripe for exploration. There's so much to find here, and the level eliminates the usual drawbacks of underwater levels. This is by far my favorite Banjo world to just spend time in. It's so inviting and relaxing, but it never feels boring. There are many fun and exciting challenges, and you can even transform into a submarine, complete with torpedoes and sonar. I completely missed this in my Banjo-Tooie video and my entire life of playing this game, but you can actually use the submarine to complete many of the underwater jiggies, including the boss fight itself. This is exactly what the other transformations should have been, not just one-off steps to complete specific jiggies, but an alternate way to explore and complete entire portions of the level. This makes the submarine the only transformation to really live up to its full potential. Jolly Roger's Lagoon is just the embodiment of everything I personally love about Banjo-Tooie, and it's one of the best collectathon worlds I've ever played. So that was my personal ranking of all the classic Banjo worlds, and I want to hear from you guys in the comments. One of the things I love about these games is the diverse range of opinions and experiences people have with it. I love hearing different points of view, so let me know what I got wrong. The response to my latest videos has been frankly astonishing, and I'm truly humbled by the support you guys have given me. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. I'm going to keep making videos, so make sure you subscribe to the channel for more, and check out my other videos if you haven't seen them. Thanks again for watching, and take care.